Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows, and with us as well is Henrique Jaime. So it's been 1 week since we last convened to talk non-spoilers for Avengers Endgame. 1 week since we lost Jordan Brown, James Bailey, and so many others at the hands of Thanos. But there's still the three of us here, and that just means it's up to us to talk full spoilers about Avengers Endgame on this episode. I'm not really feeling up for any fun facts, and I'd say probably the only noteworthy piece of news since we last recorded is that Jeff Fowler, the director of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, announced on Twitter that in response to criticism, Sega and Paramount are going to change Sonic's horrifying design. So, half of life might have been snapped out of existence, but hey, at least there's that, right? As I said last week, we've got a whole lot more to say on Avengers Endgame, so we're going to get into it, and we're going to get into it right now. Full spoilers for Avengers Endgame.
Hey, dude, listen. I was thinking, why don't we just say fuck Thanos and bring everybody back ourselves? We can do that, right?
I keep telling everybody they should move on and grow, and some do. But not us.
That's what I'm saying.
We've been down this road. We tried last week. We tried to undo it all. And do I need to fucking remind you that you were the one that screwed it all up?
Yeah,
for
but
us?
listen, I got fucked up and I fell asleep on the couch, and then I came back from work the next day and I watched Back to the Future. Okay, and I have some inspiration. And if the director of Sonic can redraw his shit and remake Sonic the fucking Hedgehog, then we can remake our shit too, and we can go back in time and we can fucking bring everybody back.
Okay, so Back to the Future, time travel, is that what's happening here? You're talking about time travel, right?
It's more of like a fucking time heist, bro.
Okay, so all right.
We go back in time.
What do we do?
We go back in time, and we get the Infinity Stones, and then we unsnap that shit and bring everybody back for the podcast.
Okay. Well, this could work. I mean, I just built a quantum tunnel, which, I mean, a few modifications, a little bit of tinkering, and that's a fucking time machine, man. So let's think about this. I mean,
well, 6 stones, 3 of us, 2 apiece.
We only have enough PEM particles for 1 round trip each. So if we do this, we have to do it right.
Okay. So 2012, that's the Battle of New York. The Time Stone and the Mind Stone should both be there. I'll go there.
Okay. So that's 2. And now there's 4 more. 2013 Asgard, Space Stone, Reality Stones should both be there if we can slide in at the perfect time, which I guess just leaves.
I'm going to fucking Asgard, bro. I'm going to Asgard.
Okay, I guess you're going to fucking Asgard. Jesus, it's fine. I mean, I wasn't going to fight you for it or anything, but I see how it is. So it's 4 off the board, 2 left. That leaves the Power and the Soul Stones, Morag and Vormir. Outer space is nice this time of year, right?
This is it. This is the fight of our lives. Let's do it. Whatever it takes.
All right, let's do it. We'll meet back here in 3 seconds with the stones. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
See you guys on the other side.
Holy shit, did we do it?
Time and Mind Stones? Check.
Got mine. Had to lose that which I loved on Vormir, but hey man, I can always just order another box of pizza. I'll live.
We fucking did it. Let's bring everybody back.
Well, I guess we're gonna need a gauntlet. As it just so turns out, I conveniently constructed one about 5 seconds ago. So, well, I guess we're good on that front. But who's gonna bring them back?
I will. It's almost like I was made for this.
Well then, let's do it.
satisfying.
Did it work?
I think it worked.
Mr. Watch Review Repeat, on your left.
It worked, I told you!
Son of a bitch.
Wait. Where's James?
On your right.
Oh, what?
Yes.
What? Left and right? You could come from both directions?
Damn.
What? What?
Wow.
Nailed it.
Oh.
What a script.
Oh,
that was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Thank you guys for humoring me with that. But it's good.
Best adapted screenplay of the year,
Oh,
Colton Brown.
oh yeah, for sure. In all seriousness, it's good to have Jordan Brown and James Bailey back with us on the podcast. Thank you both for joining us, and you're welcome for saving you. No big deal. It actually has been 1 week since we did the last episode, the non-spoiler coverage of Endgame. We tried to do everything in one night, full spoilers and everything. And let's just say, long story short, we ran into some technical issues that prevented us from getting that version of the episode out to you guys. But we've reassembled the Avengers, and well, we're going to talk some full spoilers for Avengers Endgame now. So Jordan, James, I'm going to ask you guys, you guys have any overall thoughts on the movie itself? Granted, we're in full spoilers, so don't feel the need to hold back, but Andrew, Henry, and myself have gotten our thoughts on the record, but I figure you guys deserve a fair opportunity as well, so the floor is yours.
Well, I had that what I've heard is a week of downtime that you guys were trying to save us to not appreciate the fact that I'd seen it. I didn't realize a week had passed, but it feels so fresh to me. I really did enjoy the movie. It was really the culmination of everything. A bit bittersweet, a bit of melancholy in the overall sense that, it's not like a comic book. There's not the expectation that I'm going to continue to see these actors playing these characters year after year, the same way you get 12 issues of a comic book every year after year, no matter who dies, no matter who lives, no matter what story arc goes through. There's going to be more of the story, and it needs to end, and I think it did it pretty much as perfectly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's this giant culmination of like 21 or 22 films at this point, and it's such a satisfying payoff, and it really is just cinematic history. I mean, up to this point, it's made such an enormous amount of money, but that's not even to mention the fact that it took 22 movies to get to this point, and I think that this is like a once in a generation kind of moment. Like, I don't think that this can be done again easily for a very long time. So, and just overall, I think that sacrifices were made, and whether or not we see certain characters again, it was just such a satisfying bookend to everything that we've been following for a decade at this point.
Well, I fully agree, and I probably said as much a week ago. But no, I mean it's really just something astonishing to behold. And I love that. And I might not have said as much in non-spoilers, so maybe I'm not repeating myself as much as I think I am. But it really did feel like a conclusion. It's crazy. Been building for 22 movies now, but like there was a real sense of finality to most of the characters. I think that we have known since the beginning. Our Phase 1 characters all kind of had a big part to play. In most cases, a pretty big resolution to their storylines, and 3 hours of Marvel goodness, man. I mean, it's good. It's good. So what we're gonna do here, we got a lot of people, a lot of people to juggle around, lots of thoughts, obviously that are going to be had. But I'm gonna try to direct the conversation as much as possible, chip in where I can. I'm the kind of person that likes to talk for hours upon hours all by my lonesome, and I don't want that to be the case here. So if I get ranty and rambly at any point, please let me know.
Colton, do you think we should update everyone that's been gone for a week on the box office breakdown?
We could do that. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. Putting me on the spot here. But yeah, I mean,
general.
2.2 bill, I believe, 2.3.
The man's on top of things. I mean, he wasted no time. He came back, and then he just immediately started Googling, like, I gotta know the fucking box office receipts. I gotta know. It's at 644 million domestically, at 1.6 billion foreign grosses, sitting at a total of 2.2 billion, speeding its way towards Avatar. I know I said some things earlier in the episode, / last week, about it possibly being able to cross The Force Awakens domestically. I think that's looking less likely based on the way it's playing, but it's still going to end up, I think, probably the number 2 spot overall. But Avatar at that worldwide gross, I think, is still well within its targets. I believe its second weekend, it was about a 58% drop, down to 147 million for the weekend, which is it fell short of the second weekend record by about $2 million, also held by The Force Awakens, which opened over Christmas time. And so I think it was just naturally built to be a leggier movie. And Marvel movies have been somewhat front-loaded, so it's not super surprising. But when you fucking open with $357 million, right. It doesn't matter how much you drop, like, you know what I mean? Like you're sitting pretty. So $2.2 billion. Yeah, I think Disney's feeling okay about themselves.
Oh, yeah. In how long? Like 11 or 12 days or something crazy like that? Or
yeah, and I think that's probably the absurdity of it. Is yeah, I mean it came out a week and a half ago, something like that. I mean, it's just stupid. It is absolutely ridiculous, astonishing, all the superlatives. You could throw them all in there. So that's where the box office is at. Good call. So I like to think of this movie as a 3-act movie. I mean, it makes sense. It's a 3-hour movie with a lot of things that happen in it, and a lot of places to cover. You know, this is coming off the snap in Infinity War. You know, where does everyone go from here? Basically, is kind of where the movie starts, and then it kind of builds from that point on. So I think what I would like to do is proceed linearly through the movie, but without getting too just plot recap heavy. So I'm just going to ask some open-ended questions, and I'm hoping that will at least facilitate some discussions, bring some things to mind for you guys. I have now seen it 3 times, which is one more time than I did last week when we did our non-spoiler coverage. And I saw it yesterday, so like this is all like super immediate in my mind. I assume it's probably not as recent for you guys, but it's a pretty memorable movie, so there might be a few things that you recall. There might be. So I want to start with the first act, which I like to say is the fallout, you know, from an Infinity War. You know, seeing a world immediately after it's been devastated with losing half of the population of the entire universe. I mean, pretty big deal, I think. I mean, obviously, we had a couple guests here that were personally affected by the snap, so that's pretty harrowing in and of itself.
The opening sequence, man, with fucking Hawkeye. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, I mean, what did you think about basically? Say maybe the first half hour is the immediate aftermath of it, or literally the aftermath as you're talking about with Hawkeye's family. I wanted to know what you guys thought about the decision to have this pre-time jump thing that they do, seeing all the characters immediately react and going on this merry quest to chop Thanos' head off successfully at that. I mean, bold storytelling in my opinion, but I leave it to you guys. What sticks out maybe from like the first half hour or so of this film?
2 things stick out for me. Hawkeye losing his family on a fucking family picnic. That was pretty fucking devastating.
That was dark.
Yeah. You also get Hawkeye kicking the ass of the I don't know what they are, the Yakuza or whatever. I mean, I don't know, whatever the Japanese gangs are or whatever. That was pretty cool. But the second thing is flat out, we're gonna go kick his ass. So they fly into fucking Thanos' hut and chop his head off. First they chop his arm off, and then they chop his fucking head off.
He's just there farming, man. He's just, you know, he's taking a little salt, doing a little Salt Bay action on his veggies, and you know, how rude.
They fucking end him real quick.
It's like they made the Avengers out to be like villains in that sequence. Like they just fucking went in there and just murdered his ass without hesitation.
He had no army, no nothing.
Yeah, and it was so satisfying too, because I feel like that's how audiences felt after all the trauma that we've been put through from that snap. It was like, fucking murder Thanos, and there's no way going into that movie I thought that we were going to get Thanos murdered within the first 20 minutes, and
you got it.
And you know, people were speculating like crazy about what this could be, like what the beginning of this movie could be and how it could play out. And I don't think I saw anybody saying murder Thanos in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, but you know, it kind of set the pace though. They murder him, and then what's it matter? It doesn't matter.
Well, it's like, okay, that was where they went from there. Well, how the fuck do you go from there? You know, it's just, yeah. I say it's bold storytelling because it's.
Oh yeah.
It really just makes you wonder. I mean, in the theater, I wasn't like. I mean, I expected them to immediately go after Thanos, but I didn't expect them to kill him. I honestly just thought they'd get their asses handed to them enough that they would just be like, we're going to go sink in our hole for a few years and then maybe get our shit together at some point. I didn't think they would be successful, and yet as still as unsuccessful as they were at the end of Infinity War. I mean, it was a extremely hollow victory for them there.
This is a really interesting Thanos, especially when you see him come back later in the movie as a younger version of himself. Like he never fought back once. Like he was there, he did what he sought out to do, and
yeah.
You know, he could have put up a fight, maybe not have won, but he was fine dying that way. Like that he succeeded. So you know, he let them kill him basically.
Yeah, there's no hesitation when he makes the snap. There's no regrets after the snap. He just gathers strength long enough to be strong enough to make that second snap and make sure everything stays permanent, which I think is an interesting contrast to his revised plan from the younger Thanos towards the end of the whole thing. I certainly didn't expect the film to go in that direction. I think it really starts a very interesting through line with Thor, because talk about them being the villains or whatever, but they were kind of doing standard Marvel superhero stuff, and then Thor's the one that comes in with no holds barred and the arm chop and the head chop, and that really follows his character throughout the movie. Not necessarily that he
went for the head.
Regrets taking a life, because he's a character, with the frost giants and being 1,000 years old that has taken many lives and taken many lives off screen, but there's nothing to fix the failure that he feels himself to be, and I think that's interesting. Hawkeye, obviously, character we don't see. He doesn't have a spin-off movie like an Ant-Man, so we don't know what's going on with him. The whole, the thing of it for me is, one, it was really interesting to see a cold open. I don't think anybody in the audience was expecting that. We still had a few murmurs before people realized, oh shit, this is the movie. It's not just a production credit or anything like that, and quieted down. But yeah, it was an interesting place to start. And then the one that really was kind of a gut punch was what comes next is that title card, 5 years later, which is a long, harsh time for us to deal with, for the characters to deal with. And, we can see the state of the world, which obviously, much like you guys had a hard time discussing spoilers without us, the rest of the world has a hard time moving on, forgetting what happened and, living in this harmonious fantasy land that Thanos thought would spring from his successful snap.
Yeah. The 5 years later, I mean, there was definitely some gasps in the audience. I feel like anytime I've seen it, I mean, I saw it on a Tuesday night, in second week, and it was still decently busy and such. So it was a little bit of less of an audible reaction than there was, say, opening night. But I really feel like, I mean, again, that's just that's bold storytelling. You start with this horrifying moment with Hawkeye. You kind of have, I mean, Tony is basically maybe going to die in space, Captain Marvel to the rescue, and you're like, hurrah moment, Cap, let's go get this son of a bitch. And you think, fuck yeah, Avengers Endgame, this shit's going to be great. And then within 5 minutes, that whole thing is basically dispelled, and then you get this fucking 5 years later time card, and you're just like, well, fuck me. What? I really loved that approach that they had with how this film went. And I feel like, especially within this first hour, I think it lets you feel the gravity of the situation. It really, I mean, it's a 3-hour movie, so it's something that's obviously comfortable enough to let you just sit with these characters. But I think that's important because the third act of just fucking nonsense action beats. I don't think that works if you don't have the groundwork that gets laid early in this movie, in the middle of this movie. But I think particularly in the beginning of this movie, to let you feel like some of these characters have the weight of the world on their shoulders, even after 5 years. Some of them have resorted to alcoholism and gotten a little tubby, and so it's interesting to see where all the characters are at this point. And so that leads me to my question of, after this 5-year time jump, how did you guys feel about where the characters were at that point? Like, did you feel it was in character, surprising, unsurprising, cool, whatever? Any emotions?
I think that they paid off, like you were saying earlier. All of our major core Avengers had
the OG Avengers.
The OG Avengers, yep. They had some sort of interesting spin on their character, something new that they had to grapple with. And I think every single one of them pays off to really, like you said, nearing the end of the movie, it could have become just a CGI mess, but instead we care about every character that's on that battlefield. And we care about these characters because we see, like, Tony develops a family and is a different person than he was at the end of Infinity War, and like you see Cap and Natasha and everybody's just dealing with the loss that they've suffered. And I think that that's really powerful storytelling, because you have those character beats and those characters going through arcs. And I think that's definitely what you needed to see after Infinity War in order to make Endgame feel just as ambitious, I guess.
I feel like Cap, out of all the Avengers, was probably the one that was least affected, only because he experienced something similar to this beforehand.
Man at a time.
Being in a capsicle, whereas no one else, had experienced this kind of similar trauma, I guess. He had lost everyone before, and he loses people again, which obviously affects him, but you really see how much it affects characters like Black Widow, I feel like this is the first movie that I saw, like, some people really, like, break through with their acting, in a sense. Not that any of them had been bad actors before, but, like, I feel like everyone just brought their A game to this, and you really see it, because it is a group of really talented A-list Hollywood people now. And, like, Scarlett Johansson with Black Widow, just, you could really feel the pain that she went through as her character, like, losing everyone, and then even losing people that weren't snapped, like with Hawkeye and Clint. Like, he's become a different person now, and it like hurts her to even find out about what he's been doing.
I think that that's the major thing, is just that seeing the characters put in situations like this. I'm sure the actors, when they read the scripts, were like, we're being given amazing material. We're being given, like, it's not like, oh, this character is going to run down a hallway and punch somebody. Like, we're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with, like, trauma, and that I can only assume that the actors were super excited to tackle these new arcs for their characters.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You have kind of a situation, I think it's best highlighted by Cap and Black Widow. He's with his support group, just spending his time there with the regular everyday people. How do we move on? And she's, I guess, more than any of them, has not been able to move on. But we're living in a world where a lot of the conflict internally was between the Avengers and, like, the Ultron and the Accords and all that kind of stuff. Is there are going to be threats coming. How do we deal with them? But the threat came. They lost, but they survived, and they're kind of living in a world where, like, are they even necessary anymore? I think Cap asks Black Widow, and some of the situations they're dealing with, like a volcano, like, what do we do about it, or an earthquake, or whatever it was. We don't do anything. It is what it is. It doesn't need a superhero response. So they survive the worst, but they just can't let go of what they lost. But a lot of interesting arcs. A lot of stuff even that's not addressed, I think. Obviously it's not to the level of Captain America, but Ant-Man, Scott, lost 5 years. He didn't realize he lost 5 years, but he lost 5 years of his life, of his family. The little girl that was in the other movies, I think it was the same girl for both, was really adorable. So it's kind of sucks that you won't get to see her again. But I thought they did a real good job. Like I could see this new actress being the same character. It gives Tony something to fight for. It moves his character along from the will they, won't they, and then the engagement or whatever it was he and Pepper had. So it advances a lot of the B or C plots that were in the movie. Like now that being an Avengers is the most important thing. What are we going with our lives? What do we do, as people? But you can still tell that all of them are still suffering from what they've had to go through. Some much more obviously than others. In the case of Thor, where it's more of a physical manifestation of his depression.
Mm-hmm. I cried with Ant-Man and Cassie.
Dude, oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them, really emotional beats in there. I mean, dude just lost 5 years of his life, didn't realize it, and he doesn't even recognize his daughter, immediately. Like that's fucking heartbreaking. It's
he
crazy.
Comes back after fucking 5 minutes.
And for her dad, for all intents and purposes, was dead. Just vanished. Like the half the whole fucking population of the universe. Like that's the emotions to see him come back, and I mean. There was a lot. There was a lot of emotions packed into that. And I think that is founded, as I think many of these characters, at least starting point. I mean, it's one of those things like, I think we walk in, probably the five of us walk into this movie invested in most of these characters, if not all of them, like to begin with, like we were predisposed to them. And so like someone like Scott Lang, has... really gotten his shit together over the course of Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and like that father-daughter relationship with Cassie, like it's really, really great. It's really touching, really heartfelt. The relationship he has even with his ex-wife and the stepdad, and like it's all really well handled. And then to see him thrown into this situation is just fucking horrifying, man. It's not just him. It's all of them have to do their own thing, and certainly something like that is a moment that's extremely emotional, but all of them have really just gone through the ringer in some way or another. In the case of someone like Tony, like it almost seems like in a way he's living his best life, but that, Tony obviously, he I think as we see kind of a little bit later in the movie when he tinkers with inventing time travel and all, like there's a part of me that just assumes that Tony's been just quietly working on something for the past 5 years, and then like he just got the missing formula to throw in there. It's just like, son of a bitch, that was the thing that I needed. Like that's the way I kind of feel about it. I feel like Tony, even with Morgan, even with settling down with Pepper, I feel like there's still that suit of armor around the world kind of thing that's always part of Tony, even if he has much more of a personal stake in the here and now, being 2023, I guess at that point. I don't think we talked about it. The fucking the scene when he gets back to Earth in the beginning and he just goes after Cap was like the best payoff to Civil War. Like that was like you needed that reunion and you needed them to sell it and make it feel earned, and they did it. I thought, yeah.
That was one of the most intense parts of the beginning. Is like, Captain Marvel saves Tony, and I was like, this is amazing. They're gonna get back together this quickly. And then Tony's refusal to join the cause to get any sort of redemption, and like you saw, like this is what he wanted to avoid, and they couldn't avoid it. That was super powerful. And I wanted to talk about Thor for a second, because I feel like for such a powerful character, for the character that we have all looked at, especially with Ragnarok, and just seeing like this awesome powerhouse, to see his arc through this story and kind of to know that he's dealing with the death of, like, at this point, Loki, Odin, and Freya,
all his fucking people, pretty much,
right? And all of Asgard,
world. Yeah,
and to see how he handles it in such a realistic way, I felt like was really refreshing. And I've seen people criticizing the fact that they made him obese and like dealing with like some of those issues, but I think that that's like a legitimate depiction of what can happen to somebody dealing with that kind of depression. And there were people who were like, maybe he'll get skinny from his powers, or his mom will magic away his, you know what I mean? All of that. I think they're so much more powerful. It's so much more powerful for his character to just like let these like everything that flows up inside of him kind of come to fruition, and eventually he, you know, I don't want to skip too far ahead. I feel like I'm talking about the end, but basically like they make good on it, and he, you know, you see his character has dealt with all of these things and yet is still able to be worthy and be the hero.
He's still worthy. That's right.
See,
yeah.
I was going to say that, you know, it's interesting that, you know, I think that in being the obese, and dealing, just being out of shape and dealing with everything the way he's dealing with everything, I think by the end of the movie, he becomes more Norse-like than we've ever seen any of the Norse gods.
Which is fun. Like, that's such a good nod to, like, the idea of Thor.
He gets, like, the braided beard and everything else, and it's just...
It looks like a fucking Viking.
He looks like a fucking
Badass.
Viking by the end of the movie. Yeah, it was fucking awesome. He's got lightning flowing through his eyes and...
Dual-wielding 2 fucking hammers and shit.
Yeah. I mean, it almost feels like... I don't know. It almost... I don't know what it feels like. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it feels so much more real than you know, a lot of the other stuff. So I don't know. Fat Thor is one of my favorite arcs in the whole movie.
Yeah, I thought it was great, and a great use of subversion. You know, I think there's a meme going around of like someone like posted on Twitter. It was a picture of like fit Thor from either Ragnarok or Infinity War. Like, this is the only reason I'm walking in to see Endgame, and everyone's just like, oh, you know. But I know I think there is a real genuine reason for that. I mean, you know, you get your cheese whiz jokes and stuff in there too, which, sure, if you want to criticize it for that, I don't think you're entirely off the mark or anything like that. But I do think there is a real... They did it for more than just laughs. You know, I think there was a real attempt to make that an exploration of depression and the way that people react to bad things in life. So, and it was one that to me felt pretty real.
And it made the venture to Asgard to get his stone. I think that the interaction between him and his mother that much more
poignant.
Yes.
Which, can you believe that we got Thor: The Dark World of all movies to be a live
wild,
best
wild
MCU movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, it kind of makes me appreciate Thor: The Dark World a little more.
Right? Yeah, I kind of want to go back and watch it. Like, I never.
There's been several films like in the MCU where I'm just like, I would really like to rewatch this now, and I'm like, and then like I keep looking at my list, and I'm like, oh, it's the whole MCU. Okay, I see how it is. Except for I don't know. There's a couple, I guess, that weren't as heavily referenced, I guess, as some others. But I feel like almost every movie got at least the slightest bit of play in it, you know, and in some capacity, maybe it's just a character connection or something like that. So we're mostly through the OG Avengers and such. Ronan, we can talk a little bit about Barton's transformation and obviously Henry, what you mentioned about that impact on Nat that we see, and fucking props to ScarJo for I am in the same opinion that, you know, like, I think they've always been game for this, but to me it really felt like they all the actors stepped their game up, like. Maybe because in some cases they knew it was their swan song, although she's getting another movie, so I guess maybe not. You know, it was kind of just like it was a real. I mean, like, I don't know, like there's some real emotion to this. Like, you know, get it, big comic book movie, makes billions of dollars and whatever. Like, you could totally write this off. I really think, like I could get the sentiment behind it, but what they did with this, I mean, is really, really spectacular. But like Ronan,
what you're saying is they could Jennifer Lawrence it.
Well, yeah, that's a good way of surmising it, I would say. Yeah, that's a good call. I actually feel like I loved what they did in setting up Barton as Ronan. I didn't think there was much payoff to it, though, other than it just having a cool sequence in Tokyo. That's kind of my opinion on it. I mean, I think it ties more into what Nat's storyline is and where their storyline builds to and how that resolves and stuff like that. But I just felt like no one else in the Avengers acknowledged that he was just a murderous psychopath for like a few. I mean, I guess he was killing bad guys or whatever. And, you know, Avengers killing stuff before. It's obviously not new. I mean, Cap's a soldier. He's definitely killed a few people. But it the way they regarded him and in a way that Nat reacted to it, it really felt like should have been scrutinized a little bit more, whereas it just kind of was just like once he was back, you know, like, oh, we got to do the test trials for the time travel, and it's just like, fuck it, I'll do it, man. And it didn't seem like they were ever apprehensive of him. They were just kind of just like, yeah, 5 years, whatever. I kind of feel like they could have added a little bit more weight to why he had gone that route, but I liked that they did go that route with it. I thought that was an interesting choice for the character itself. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we might not see their reaction to it, but I guess at least having a Hawkeye show coming up, we can see like how it affected him. But yeah, it would have been cool to see a little bit more of it in this film.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about Professor Hulk? The merged Hulk.
Dabbing.
We haven't talked about that at all. Hulk out.
He's just a small little Hulk.
Is he?
I feel like
small.
I feel like we've known this is coming, right? Like we've all, I think, surmised that they were kind of building towards Banner's fighting with Hulk and they're starting to form a bond. And I feel like if you were familiar with the comics, you knew that Professor Hulk was probably on the horizon. But he's very much Banner. Like he's very Professor Hulk. Like there's not much Hulk left in there other than visually.
Right. Yeah. But I feel like that visual dichotomy is still it's pretty great. I really enjoyed, especially his serving of the tacos. I felt was great.
So good.
A little too much lettuce, I think, for my liking. But other than that, prime taco maker, Professor Hulk. Yeah, it's a fun. Again, it's interesting. Like obviously, certain characters react in like a very negative way to losing people that you love and stuff like that. And like, yeah, that would make sense. But it's interesting that like Banner is just like, well, fuck it. I'll just take this opportunity to spend, a year and a half of my life to better myself and see things from a different perspective. I just found it interesting that like the very different trajectories that these characters find themselves on, but they find themselves coming back together for the second act. If there's no other thoughts on kind of anything in the first act, any thoughts?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the second act is the time heist. Obviously, a heavy inspiration for our little skit that we did. Penned by yours truly. Don't worry about it. The time heist. It's interesting. I mean, this is like the most fan serviest. I don't think that's a word.
It is now. Everything.
I've coined it.
Every word is made up.
It's the most. That's right. That's true. It's the most fan serviest part of. Serviciest? I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of fan service in this, is where I'm trying to make my point. But it's an interesting way to go back and explore past movies, past encounters, past character interactions, past characters, dead characters, maybe give them interesting setups for their own Disney Plus spinoffs, maybe. I don't know.
Quicksilver being in it was awesome.
Yeah, Quicksilver crushing it, straight crushing it. There's a few characters that didn't seem to make the cut. Like Vision got like a one-off line, but it really felt like they would do something with that. We're just kind of just jumping around, but yeah, I totally thought like at least something for Quicksilver. I mean, like Wanda's like totally over. I mean, I get it. They don't have their Ultimate Universe brother sister Jamie Cersei kind of thing going on or anything like that.
Unfortunately.
That's the Godzilla universe.
That's the Godzilla / the Godzilla universe. Yeah. That's correct. But it's like. She's just all about the Vision train, which it just doesn't seem like they've really referenced Pietro. I mean, I guess I don't. He was. I mean, I just wish they did more with that character. I guess I don't know what else you could do at this point, but like if there was any opportunity to revisit Quicksilver, now I think would have been the time to do it. But I guess that would have meant that they would have had to travel to either Sokovia at some point for some reason, or to. Well, I guess they would. I mean, it's probably just around the events of the Avengers, or I guess post the Mind Stone fuckery with Hydra and stuff like that. So I guess there's a pretty limited window where they could have done that. But I don't know. They didn't do it, so there's that. But we did go on several heists. We had quite a few. I guess 5 in total. A planned 4. 5 total, I think, is where it was. So I'm curious. Does anyone like? Of the 5, which I'll identify, we had the New York 2012 original Avengers setting, which diverted into a New Jersey 1970 adventure onto the army base where Shield was located. Asgard, which we've talked about a little bit already. 2013, Thor: The Dark World. Morag, 2014, beginning of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then Vormir, 2014. Different year than we've ever been to Vormir, but very heavily tied into the Thanos Gamora stuff from Infinity War. So of those 5, did you guys have a favorite? Was there anything that stuck out to be? There's obviously one thing. There's a pretty major thing that happens at one of these that we'll talk about. So if that comes up, obviously feel free. But other than that, I'm just curious. Like
America's ass.
America's ass is something that comes up. Yeah, that's something that comes to mind.
Important thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked the kind of the mania of the New York one, the all over the place, relive the Avengers, but then Thor and the Stairs and Loki and the Hail Hydra, which I took as a call to the comics, that controversial plot line from a few years ago, but I guess it could have been a callback to prior movies, or more likely just a combination of the two.
I think it's a bit of both. Yeah,
I think that Hail Hydra comic book, and to be honest, I don't know how or if it's been resolved yet, kind of made a mainstream breakthrough, kind of like Spider-Man revealing his identity back in the original comic Civil War back in the day. And then it kind of segues into the 1970. You get those really nice moments with Howard Stark and
Howard Potts.
I couldn't think of the last name, Potts, which is really nice. But I'd say my favorite is probably Asgard. I think it's the sparsest in terms of content, but contains one of my favorite scenes, Thor and his mother. That conversation they have is just so, like, Tony and his dad is cool, but like the level of emotionality about how this guy lost his mom and lost everybody, and he's just so broken and doesn't feel like anything can fix him. But just like a conversation with her, and that helps him realize that no, I can't address these issues. And then the moment we talked about earlier, he calls the hammer, "I'm still worthy," despite his failures, despite the actions he's taken since. But that's one of my favorite scenes in the film, and so I'd say that's my favorite one, even though just for sure spectacle, I'd say New York is probably the most fun, but just in terms of content, I'd say that's my favorite.
I'd agree with you 100%.
How do you think they chose who would go to each place? Because I guess like Cap and Iron Man in New York, I guess, makes sense. And Thor obviously has to go to Asgard. But I wonder. Well,
Ant-Man said that he was not going to Vormir, so
that's true.
So he was out. He was out for that.
So he was out.
Rhodey and Nebula going to Morag was like the weirdest pairing, I think. I mean, I get Nebula, but Rhodey.
It's interesting.
I feel like they probably worked backwards from their Vormir pairing, if I had to guess, because of the way that sequence ends. Because Henry, you and I might have had a conversation along these lines, but it's like, who else could you send in their place to Vormir to be able to actually get the Soul Stone by trading the soul for a soul?
From a story narrative and more just from the characters.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying. But I do think that a lot of that, like, they probably made that decision, and then at that point they just kind of slotted them in, like Thor going to Asgard. Well, that makes sense. Rocket's been hanging out with him since Infinity War. That kind of makes sense. Cap and Iron Man, obvious pairing. Hulk was there. I guess Ant-Man, where are you going to throw him? I don't know. I guess Ant-Man being on Earth makes more sense than like Nebula going to Morag. Totally makes sense. So I guess, but it's like, I guess it was like Ant-Man and Rhodey are probably kind of the odd men out of just like, well, they weren't really part of this sequence at any point in previously. Although that said, where the fuck was Rhodey during the Battle of New York?
I was just thinking about that too.
I think there might be a comic book about that actually. Like, I don't know, like Rhodey's. He was
lifting that.
You
tank.
remember? Yeah, I was gonna say. You remember that? You looking for this line? That was.
You look. Boom! You looking for this?
When I have to remember when the movie came out. I mean, he may have been in the process of getting recast, so he was a temporary available.
Iron Man 2 came out.
Iron Man 2 was before Avengers. Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, like, as far as Vormir goes, you maybe can send Rhodey there instead.
But with
he's
who?
already fallen from really high, survived. His
Tony,
legs
maybe.
are already busted. So
with Tony,
I say throw him down the well and see what happens.
Yeah, it goes there with Tony. It's like, see ya, dude. I mean, come on, like,
I mean, I hate the idea of killing Rhodey. I would hate to see Rhodey die. Like, I mean, and like I hated seeing Natasha die as well. But if they took Tony and Rhodey to Vormir and then threw Rhodey down there, I would be like really fucked up. Because I don't know if I could be told that Rhodey was coming back. I'm still convinced that Natasha might come back in some way.
Yeah,
I could see it. I mean, I think that line at the very end, I really tried. I mean, I could take that as like, no, we're telling you it's not going to happen, or like, yeah, he tried and maybe something did happen. It just takes some time to work out. But
Here's the question.
It really works with the emotional relationship between the two, and I agree that the Ronan storyline is kind of dropped off to a large part, but I guess it does play a little bit with his death wish, his suicidal actions, and now he may have hope that there's something to live for, but has he already gone too far that he can't forgive himself? Like, just, my family's better off without me. I've been a monster over these last 5 years. I'm not the same man that they know, and maybe I'm the one who should take the leap. So, I mean, it does play in a little bit, but I think it's more subtle. It's more like, you have to think about that. But still, I agree it could have been more developed throughout the film.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it definitely makes sense for Barton's character in that moment. I think my criticism earlier was more in response to the fact that no one seemed to address that with him directly. It was more like, I think there's definitely an internal struggle with him as a result of that, and I think that's the most interesting that they do with that particular part of the storyline. I just wish there was other aspects to it than just that.
Question.
Go ahead.
I got a question.
Okay.
So the whole interaction with the Soul Stone is you have to trade a soul for a soul, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of like it?
Well,
right, so
you have to lose that which you love, so it's not just any soul.
Right.
Well, that's what we were told in the first one, but they were sitting there fighting. So does Barton love Natasha? I mean, I guess in a sense they do.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think romantically.
Well, I think they were
just love in general. So here's the big portion of my question is when they go back in time, they send. I'm jumping ahead here.
Yeah.
But they send Cap back in time with a briefcase full of fucking stones, right? To go return them in their appropriate places for the timeline. So he goes to Vormir and he has to give the stone back to
the Red Skull.
Back to Red Skull.
That's a fun interaction in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, listen, I'm going to trade that life back for the Soul Stone.
Well, I don't think you do get the life back.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
You don't think? You don't think it's like a 1-for-1?
I don't think this is a Walmart like you can
trade in.
Return.
I forgot my receipt, but
this is a no buybacks kind of thing.
Well, I think
take it. But good luck.
I do think they kind of go out of their way to make it seem like it's an irreversible transaction. Like
right.
With Thor's just like, we got the fucking stones, bitch. Like, we'll get her back or whatever. And then Barton's just like, well, you tell the fucking red guy that. Like, I think they
did.
They went out of the way, I think, a couple times to make it not just like an obvious immediate solution, which isn't, just to kind of branch off of what we were saying already. Like, well, they could absolutely do something along those lines. Hell, they've put time travel in this universe. They can just jump into any point and just pluck her out of the timeline and be like, hey, you know how we did that with 2014 Gamora? Like, look, she's great. Look, she's just like like we plucked her out like 2 minutes before she jumped it there. So there's a branch timeline where she dies, but we picked her out like 2 minutes before the new branch timeline. But it's one of those things. It's like, they've opened up the can of worms, obviously, but I feel like they're probably not going to spend too much time with the time travel aspects of it, maybe the other repercussions of it perhaps, but not that particularly. So I would say if we do get Nat back in any form in the 2023 timeline, or theoretically our main timeline for the MCU, I don't know. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting to see her in other ways, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I've seen some people criticize the killing of Natasha just because obviously she's the one OG like female Avengers, and it was kind of a motivation to Clint. But it seemed different than other like stereotypical comic book sacrifices to me, where it really was like a battle between the two of them, and they both wanted to make the sacrifice. And I don't know. I don't know if you guys had thoughts on this. Obviously, we're all dudes, but
I think in terms of her character, regardless of gender, I think that that, I mean, she's set up as this character with red in her ledger, so like the paying off that red by like a sacrificial moment seems like definitely a completion to her arc. But personally, like, I'm still not sold on the fact that like we're not going to just like pull Nat out of the timeline somewhere. Like I know that there's another, you know, Black Widow movie looming, but I just feel like I feel like people wouldn't be as interested in a prequel Black Widow film if knowing that Black Widow's dead. So I think that we might, I just think that the more interesting thing is to see her continuing on and not like kind of just seeing her as a spy in her ballet school and stuff. I think that continuing her character would be more interesting, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I really don't know what because it's so fascinating because I guess they haven't officially announced Phase 4 or whatever, but like we know they're doing a Black Widow movie, and we know ScarJo's going to be in it, and we know several other talented folks are going to be in it. So it is. I do wonder because I don't know if they're banking on the fact it's just like, oh, we're going to go see this prequel movie, assuming it's a prequel at all, you know, because of the reverence for her, and like I guess it's like one of those things. Like, this is obviously jumping ahead too, but like if they made Iron Man 4 and it was a prequel, people would probably still show up, right?
Is Robert Downey Jr. in it?
Well, yeah, I
people
mean,
are going to show up.
Well, that's what I mean, and I don't mean to necessarily equate those two characters because I do think that obviously one is the founder of the MCU, effectively has had 3 movies already, has had probably like 6 movies really technically that are Iron Man movies that just happen to be titled some other thing. It's, you know, for some of them, but like. So it is a little bit apples and oranges and stuff like that, but I don't think it's inherently a problem, but it's just interesting because it's their first time getting a solo Black Widow film. It's like immediately on the heels of like, that's weird. That's interesting.
I think going back to Henry's point, like what, like in terms of them killing the initial female Avenger, like that does seem like that does suck. And if it was going to be a permanent thing, I think it would be something to maybe look at and be like, that sucks that they killed off the original female Avenger. But I'm just not sold on the fact that she's gone. So I think that the people
fair.
who are worried about it will be happy when she's back. And
I mean, I get the optics. I mean, obviously you had a 1 out of 6 that you could have picked, and you know, I guess if you ended up on you know, Black Widow, then that could have bad optics. But I really, I mean, I think viewing it within the canon, within the storyline, I feel like Nat's sacrifice was a really strong completion of, I would say, her arc through the entire MCU, but I think particularly with Endgame, like you know, where she is really kind of struggling to find her place, and when she sees an opportunity to I mean, she fucking, without Nat doing what she does, I mean, I guess you could say that Barton does what she does or whatever, but without either one of them doing it, the ending doesn't happen. You know, you need 6 stones, 5 ain't gonna cut it. And so I feel like with the way that they crafted Vormir to begin with how things went down with Gamora and Infinity War, it was kind of just, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I am really just curious, I guess, as well, to see how they proceed from this point on, and I am kind of somewhat genuinely at a loss of just like, I mean, if it's a straight prequel, it's not going to surprise me, but if there's another wrinkle to it, I mean, that wouldn't be exactly unexpected.
We're talking about,
right? You know?
Black Widow a lot too, and I did want to mention that scene right after the 5 years later where she's basically coordinating all of the remaining Avengers, like Rocket in space and you know, Captain Marvel and stuff. That was amazing. I thought that was so cool.
With her haircut.
With her haircut, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you gonna get a new haircut, Carol? This little Rocket, little Bradley Cooper impression for the folks at home. It's pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah. I like how it was that same haircut too from before, but just grown out. Like, you literally saw the passage of time through her hair, which I don't know how fast hair grows, but
for Widow, you mean? Yeah.
That was an interesting, just like physical.
And I think that also speaks to her character.
I was confused. I was like, Captain Marvel's hair went the other way. She got it cut off.
Yeah, and the Black Widow stuff, her hair being red and kind of like whatever that blonder color was at the same time, kind of speaks volumes of her character as well, because she's like this international super spy that, you know, does everything she can to change her appearance and become, you know, blend into society. And then you see that like she's in a situation where she's just like doesn't give a fuck anymore. She can't. She's too busy worrying about the guilt and like coordinating any sort of rescue efforts they can scrap together.
It's interesting, isn't it, that they get paired on Vormir together, and it's almost like Barton and her are almost like parallels of each other. You know, you have Barton who's just diving in head first into absolutely everything he can and just butchering everybody that he can and just hardcore going at it, where she's held up in a hole eating peanut butter and jellies and trying to coordinate everything, but she doesn't know quite where to go to or anything else, and she's completely lost. But I don't know.
I think you can probably look at it as an inverse of kind of where their arcs began and end. You know, Widow presumably was probably a Soviet or Russian assassin, I guess, depending on how they work the timeline out.
That's a really good point. Right.
That probably murdered people all willy-nilly, you know, in the way that Barton has. And so when she says she has red on her ledger, I mean, she probably means she has red on her ledger, you know what I mean? And now that she's found her, I mean, I think we saw it on Winter Soldier where, like, she was really conflicted just about the fact that, like, hey, S.H.I.E.L.D. has basically taken her in, accepted her for who she is, and now she's part of the Avengers, and then, like, she's going to piss that all away because she's been working for fucking Nazis for years, and it's just like you see how much that breaks her, and I think that's kind of the through line through here, and so, like, this is, like, she's still trying to make good. And then Barton is now kind of playing catch up in that sense, where maybe I don't know how he was as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent back in the day, but probably not as murderous as Nat was, probably in her Russian days. And now that he's had that kind of thing, that alters his personality to the point where he's just like, I don't, you know, I think Jordan, what you were kind of saying, like, you know, it's like, I don't fucking deserve to go back to my family at this point, you know, or at least he, you know, he kind of frames it in that way. It's just like, you know, if it's shitty old me or my best friend that I love, then I'm jumping off the cliff right now. Like, fuck it, you know? So it's interesting to see. I think it's interesting what they did with those characters to bring them to that point, and then obviously the way they decided to conclude that. I mean, I think the Russos said that they went back and forth a couple times on who it was that was going to take the tumble. And I guess it was a lot of the female crew members were just be like, don't you take that away from Nat, like, and so I feel like that's actually a really interesting kind of thing, and certainly probably more perspective than any five of us can offer for obvious reasons.
Because there's cocks involved.
I think there's some cocks.
Game of Thrones?
Yes. To quote.
We shouldn't go down that rabbit hole.
We can have a 3-hour sidebar. It's fine. We will at some point on an episode in and of itself.
Can we talk about the fucking Iron Man gauntlet? Can we talk about that? Or are we not there yet?
Oh, we're pretty much there yet. I was gonna say picking a favorite heist. I mean, New York is probably again the most fan servicey of them all, and so I feel like from that standpoint, it's pretty great. But like New Jersey's fucking great. The Hank Pym cameo, the helmet shit was pretty dope. Stan Lee, and probably I think his final cameo, de-aged, fucking awesome. It was great.
Looked great.
Yeah, he did look. He looked pretty sad. Make love, not war. You know, that kind of sort of thing. Even more.
Here's an interesting. I don't mean to get segue too long, but with the fact that they de-aged Stan Lee, does that mean that his cameos can perpetuate?
I don't think that they want to, just out of respect. I
think that's true.
Yeah, I think that's...
You think that's true? Is that like a respectful thing? I feel like Stan Lee would want to be present in all the comics.
I'm sure that they'll still find ways to like show pictures of him
I think they'll do a Defenders type thing where he's just on a poster in the background, kind of like that would be what I would expect to happen from here on out. Because they had banked them up, I think, a few at a time. Just because, you know, with his health and everything at that time, it was just like, well, we'll get him on set for a day and we'll just figure something out later on in post. But I think they either used them all or they're just deciding, because I'm pretty sure Kevin Feige has said that this is the last Stan Lee cameo, presumably for the MCU. I don't think he's going to be in Dark Phoenix. I hope he's not in Dark Phoenix for his legacy's sake, personally.
I feel like, I mean, I don't know.
This would be an appropriate one to go out on, I feel like, you know?
Feige said that there's no more.
Was Stan Lee. Go ahead.
Feige said that there's no more, but like, you know, Spider-Man was his favorite. There might be one in Spider-Man here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Far From Home actually would be. That's true. You're right. Yeah, that's true.
I feel like if I was Stan Lee, immortalize my ass in all the fucking
just
Marvel
fucking
movies.
Body scan. Give me the digital body scan.
You
like
want
just
the
put me
fucking
in everything.
You want the Tarkin treatment?
Tarkin me right now. Yeah, that's right.
Are you Stan Lee and the Black Panther now?
No, I'm just the Black Panther. Facebook told me so.
It's true. It's true. I've seen it. Well, I was going to say, I think we're pretty much about to go on to the third act, but I was just to say, on the note of Morag, it's obviously very relevant that is where our Thanos derives from. The whole thing with Nebula and Thanos watching Netflix and Nebula on the cloud and stuff like that basically leads to the final confrontation of the third act. So we're at the third act. I was going to ask what the fucking coolest thing was in the third act, but you wanted to talk about a certain snap. I don't know if that was the coolest, but
there's definitely one cooler thing.
Okay, but that's a cool thing that you can talk about though if you'd like.
Yes. They make the Iron Man gauntlet, right? Which is fucking cool. Like the way it just like latches on and just Now, I have more questions. I thought that was a really cool thing, but it kind of segues into my questions.
Okay.
Right? So, Hulk snaps, right? And it brings everybody back and it fucks up his arm.
Yeah.
Much like it did Thanos.
Yeah.
And the gauntlet was very much in the same vein as it was the Infinity Gauntlet, right? It was just a gauntlet. But Tony's gauntlet, when he steals the stones, it interfaces with his entire suit. Wouldn't in the snap the power required to reverse the entire universe is much more. I don't know. I'm speculating, but the power required of the stones is much more intense to reverse or bring everybody back from the entire universe, right? So I think, for example, if I wanted to shoot a blast out of my Infinity Gauntlet, I could do that without any. I could just do that, right? It doesn't kill my arm to shoot a blast.
You're just using one
probably. Yeah, it's probably
all six.
I'd say that's probably what the bottom line is. Yeah.
Okay, so I deplete Thanos and Thanos' army with a snap, and even though that gauntlet is integrated with Tony's suit, it still zaps his ass and fries him to the point of death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what my I don't know if I posed it as a question, but it seems like that would be a much less involved snap than.
Yeah, I see what you're going for. Yeah, I mean, you're bringing back billions of people as opposed to snapping out maybe several 100,000 or something like that. I mean,
right,
I don't know how many fucking Outriders and shit there are. So, I guess that's probably it's like a numbers thing. Is kind of I would say it's probably it's a difference in power level between probably Hulk and Tony to begin with, and I think also a difference in terms of probably what Henry was saying is just like if you just shot out a beam with your fucking I don't know,
Power Stone or whatever,
whatever the beam one. He used beams in Infinity War. Maybe it was a combination, but I feel like maybe using all six, even if it's just maybe for the purpose of like just erasing people out of existence, like even just a handful of people out of existence, like that's just too taxing. I think probably for the human brain, regardless of your interface with your suit and stuff like that.
I think
okay.
I mean
that's what it was.
I see what you're going for, but I'm not sure. I don't think there's any finite hardline rules that would tell you one way or another why it would make that much more of a difference. Other than, I mean, there's things that men are not meant to meddle with. I guess would probably be kind of the thing.
Fair enough.
There's a moment when that kind of sets all of this up where Professor Hulk talks about how he's dealt with gamma radiation and the Hulk is basically gamma, and it seems that the gauntlet and the Infinity Stones are putting off gamma. So I would say that maybe the fact that it's gamma gives Hulk an advantage for surviving it.
It's a massive fucking radiation blast.
That's kind of what I figured. Yeah,
that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a good call.
That's true.
That makes
a very
sense.
Good point. Second most badass moment is when Cap fucking calls Mjolnir to his hand.
Is this the most badass, or is this the second most badass? That was confusing the way you worded that.
That was a yeah, I think that might be the most badass.
I don't know.
I feel pretty. It's a pretty tight comparison. Either that or the summoning of the fucking armies with fucking Strange. That was pretty fucking cool. But yeah, the hammer was a aha moment, whereas the calling of the army was more of like a so I don't.
This third act is just full of either just like a for like every couple minutes or like a oh fuck, like oh my, they're doing it. You know, like when the Cap, when we see Mjolnir coming up, I was just like, is this it? Is this it? You know what I mean? Like, because you know, it could have just been Thor summoning it, and then when it just races past him, you're just like, I know where that fucking thing's going. my brain couldn't handle it until it was in his fucking hands, and I'm just like, the fucking Russo brothers, give them all the money. I assume they get a good cut of the box office receipts, because those fucking guys deserve it. I mean, Jesus, look at their fucking MCU resume alone. I mean, crazy.
It was fucking it was incredible.
It was awesome.
And then he throws the fucking Mjolnir, and then he throws his shield, and it ricochets down and fucking. Oh, so cool! I tell you what wasn't badass is when Thanos rips apart Captain's shield.
I like
what the fuck's that sword? Is that sword made out of vibranium too? Is that what that is?
We don't know what it's made out
vibranium
of,
came from space,
right?
is the thing.
That's true.
So it's like,
Okay.
so I think that like maybe he had access to something similar to vibranium or something. Maybe it is vibranium. I'm not sure, but the idea
could be Dwarven Forge or something like that. You know, some crazy ass shit like that.
And then this pays off the vision that Tony had way back when he saw the shield broken. And
that's true.
And I mean, that's such a huge moment because how long have they been building up? First of all, how long have they been building up, and how long have we been waiting for Cap to wield the hammer? But the breaking of the shield, it's like we all know. Everybody that has seen Black Panther, everybody that's seen Captain America movie in any fashion knows that thing is unbreakable. And then breaking it, and then seeing Cap with the broken shield against the army by himself. Just, oh my God, absolute masterpiece.
Wallpaper material. Actually, I take it back. Fucking painting material. I need a painting of that on my wall. Pronto.
Yes.
Next to my Valkyrie, Flight of the Valkyries from Thor Ragnarok painting that I don't have yet. That I
was
going to
say you had that fucking painting. Where'd you
no,
get that painting?
Oh, dude. I wish.
One other thing that was so totally badass. I have all the badass stuff on call right now. We haven't seen Scarlet Witch do anything. I personally feel we have seen her do nothing.
She's done some
That's
cool
my
stuff.
personal opinion.
She went off on Thanos in Infinity War.
Yeah, she was kicking ass in Infinity War, but I feel
was
like...
she kicking ass like this? Because she's in the comics, she's supposed to be like a world-breaking character, right? She's supposed to be pretty fucking ridiculous.
She can be, yeah.
But you see her just, you're going to know who the fuck I am now. And she fucking just fucking rips his armor off and shit.
I have no doubt that Scarlet Witch would have torn Thanos into pieces at that point had he not, called the airstrike in from above. So, like, yeah, Scarlet Witch has some serious fucking powers going on, which that was so badass.
You could see, for the first time, you never see fear in Thanos. I don't think you've ever seen fear in Thanos.
Well, that's the first time he's just like, fuck, what's going on here?
Shit, I might die.
Just fucking rips him apart.
Might have been helpful if I did know who this chick was, actually.
That was incredible. That was a badass moment.
Great one-on-one fights. We mentioned two, and then when Captain Marvel comes in to save the day.
And she stops that snap.
And then eventually does that one-on-one, yeah.
Oh my God, when she stops that snap from happening, I was like, he's going to snap again. Here we go. She just like, nope, not today.
That fucking headbutt was incredible, though. Just no response,
right?
Man,
there's some good stuff. Jordan, I haven't heard from Jordan in a while. I think we need to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan.
We need to get him on the fun. What'd you think? Third act, you got some goodies.
I mean, it's incredible to see it all. I think it's cool. Well, I mean, the first thing is I thought Ant-Man was dead.
Oh yeah,
Oh shit! Yeah. And then I thought, like, wait a second, how are any of these guys alive? But I mean, they kind of address it a little bit. Ant-Man goes small. The other guys got their armor. They're really like, Hawkeye's like, that one doesn't really make sense. But I guess he got lucky in the right spot. But like, oh shit,
had a few rocks on him,
real serious, real quick.
Rocket gets
so I'm
like
oh shit,
in there. That was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
That, I mean, like, even more than, like, let's kill Thanos 30 minutes into our movie, that was like, oh shit, I did not expect this. I expected something. I expected they're going to come and they're going to attack and, there's going to be... I did not expect that. But from that moment on, it's just one of the most amazing cinematic experiences from, like, a hype level that I've ever been witness to. Some things I liked, I think we addressed this a little bit, but... Thor powering up, dual wielding Stormbreaker, Mjolnir.
Yeah.
Not getting into his typical fighting shape, which I think is, if he does like, oh, he's worthy, he gets his powers back, and he's a skinny guy again. I think the complaints of they're attacking heavy people would maybe be a little more founded if they chose to do it that way. But yeah, like Mjolnir when he summons Mjolnir, when he fights with Mjolnir, that's both times I saw it, that was the moment more than anything that really got people hyped. So that was really cool to see. Scarlet Witch, you talked about, Rain, Fire, just the sheer raw strength of these characters against each other was certainly something to behold. Without the Infinity Stones to enhance Thanos, he's still a match for these guys for the most part. But yeah, it was just really cool. But the portals opening, the on your left that we talked about earlier, that's that was, you get those goosebumps when that happens, when you start to hear the audio feeds through the radio. Captain Marvel throughout the film I thought was a little bit of like a Deus Ex Machina. She wasn't really a character, she was just a plot device. And I think if I had a critique of the movie, it would be, I think it makes sense to incorporate her, but maybe incorporate her a little bit better. Her story totally makes sense. She's dealing with what she's dealing with in the other planets. It totally makes sense for her not to be there, but I wish there'd been a little bit more when she was there. But the tearing the ship apart, and the fight with Thanos I thought was interesting. I've been reading some thoughts on that, where you're like, is she stronger than Thanos? Is Thanos stronger than her? And I guess some theories are that she's absorbing some of that power from the source that originally created her. So Thanos has the gauntlet and the stones, but she's absorbing that power. So he's not at full power, and she's more powerful than usual. And so she's able just to shrug that off in one of the pretty epic moments. And overall, it's just this happens and this happens and this happens, and then in the background of that you get Giant Man punching one of those big leviathans or whatever they're called. So like the foreground is this badass, like, oh, this is epic, I never thought I'd see this like ever, like on a live action cinematic thing, like maybe in a comic book. And then the background you see that punch, and just you see all this other cool background action and quick cuts to what's going on. It was pretty amazing. Like, and it went on a long time, but it was worth it.
So one of my favorite moments with Captain Marvel is I'll start it with this. Peter Parker has the gauntlet at one point and hands it, or sorry. So it starts with Hawkeye has the gauntlet, hands it to Black Widow, to Black Panther, who hands it to Spider-Man. And then one of my favorite moments with Captain Marvel, although I agree, I wish she had more to do, hey, where Peter Parker says, "Hey, I'm Peter Parker," and she's like, "Hey, Peter Parker," it's just absolute
got something
gold.
for me. Yeah,
you got something for me.
That was awesome. I like how Peter spends like his whole fucking third act, like with his helmet off and just like, "Hey, I'm Peter Parker." Like he gets on Valkyrie's Pegasus at one point, and then he's just like, "Oh fuck this, I'm out of here." It was good. I liked it. Yeah,
and then that's to bring up the A-Force moment.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I understand why people might think that it was a little pandering or something like that, but I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was on the nose, but I think it was deserved, and like it was like it's come to the point where like that moment was needed, and I loved it.
I think on the nose is probably the best way of putting it. I mean, obviously, it wasn't an accident that they filmed the scene in that way with those characters there, but I thought it was fucking awesome. I mean, sign me up for that fucking movie. You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? I think.
Do you think we're setting that up? Do you think we might get that?
Dude, that would be so great.
I would take it.
I mean,
What's
like
the A-Force?
That was like the women of Marvel team up moment, where like
to save Peter Parker over and over and over again.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
yeah, that was pretty good. I like that.
It was awesome. I feel like I just saw it yesterday. I'm pretty sure. So they brought back the Black Order, which I enjoyed. I didn't think they were going to do that, but like as part of 2014 Thanos coming back, he brings the Black Order with him. I'm pretty sure that Corvus Glaive gets fucking clowned by Okoye in like 2 seconds within that own shot.
Yeah.
They brought them back, but they were all jobbers this time.
Drax was on the back of one guy just stabbing him in the back.
He got stomped on by fucking Giant Man. That was the last we saw of Cole Obsidian. He just got stomped to death like within like 20 seconds.
That was great. I laughed my ass off when that happened.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome actually. No, it's interesting because Yeah, I'm glad they at least brought him back. It kind of makes sense. I mean, it's interesting when we have all the armies from Thanos. So he's got the Chitauri that come back. He's got the Sakarans, I think, from Guardians as well working for him. And then some other the Outriders, I guess, from Infinity War. Like he's got a lot of fucking people. I don't know if he pays well or if they're just like intimidated into working for him. I'm not sure how that works.
They're just really down for the cause. I think they're really down.
It might be. I mean, it's a big universe.
Surely half of them have to be deleted as well, though, right?
Oh yeah,
probably. That's probably what it is. He's probably just fucking destroyed their homeworld and be like, "You're going to work for me, or you're going to join them," you know. So,
yeah. I saw something with Josh Brolin where he was saying that, in his opinion, Thanos included himself in the 50%, or like in the possibility.
Oh, really?
50%.
Huh.
Yeah. So like
that'd be fun.
When he snaps, like he wasn't sure if he was going to be there still. I
feel like he's that kind of character.
I think actually,
yeah, like he wanted to complete his mission and wanted to be as fair as you can be in the sense.
I don't think it would work exactly. I'm not sure if it would be narratively satisfying, but if in the beginning of the movie, if they went to find Thanos, but he was just gone, he'd been snapped away. But if the gauntlet was there, then they would be like, all right, we're going to bring everyone back right away. So he would have to have snapped himself and snapped the stones to atoms at the same time, which I don't know if I don't know if even Thanos could have pulled that one off. But I guess if he was going to die anyway, it would have been fine. So
I am now going to make a formal release to the Soul Stone. I have to release myself.
You have to release your soul?
I had to release my soul to the Soul Stone.
Right.
I will not be making an impartial, non saying goodbye to the couch like I did last podcast. But tonight I sacrificed myself to the Soul Stone. I have to go.
All right. Well, I guess. Hold on. Let me pretend to save you from jumping off. Like, oh, don't do it. Okay, he's gone. All right, we're fine.
I hope somebody cries.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on this as a guest of this podcast. Oh wait, it's your own podcast that you're leaving, huh?
We'll have an off-screen funeral for you.
That's what it is. Oh,
that's what it is.
Oh.
We'll bring the kid from Iron Man 3 back.
Proof that Andrew has a heart floating down the river.
All right. Well, we will carry on in your absence.
The Soul Stone? Like, does that mean that we love Andrew, or do we not get the Soul Stone?
You can trade it back. It's refundable.
Well,
I'll be back next podcast.
His Soul Stone's refundable.
So he loved himself. So he has the Soul Stone, but he's also gone.
You can return my Soul Stone for one equal Andrew next podcast to the Red Skull. That's what you can do. I have a return policy on my Soul Stone. My Soul Stone's cheap.
Well, I guess it's up to us, gentlemen. Third act wise, I think we hit on most of the big moments. I think other than probably the big one at the end, the little exchange between the third snap. I guess second in the movie, but the third snap. Yeah, I mean the exchange between Thanos and Iron Man, and we talked about Captain Marvel kind of preventing Thanos from snapping, but there is another moment where he does snap. He actually does snap. I guess there might be, you might even say it's the fourth snap. I mean, one of those is completely ineffective and does absolutely nothing, but it was a snap nonetheless. So this is it. It's a swan song for Tony Stark. We get that fucking amazing exchange, the "I am inevitable" and the "I am Iron Man" retort. I think I as like the cap to this 22 film saga, like I can't think of a better closing line for fucking Iron Man other than that.
I have a little fun fact. I think on that line.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. But go ahead.
Have you seen that?
Regale me with the fun facts. Whoever would like to.
Seen the interview. Apparently, that was the last scene they filmed for the entire movie because they had to go back. That wasn't originally in the first time they filmed it through, and then they just had the "I am inevitable" line, and then Tony just did his snap. But then the editor apparently they were like going back and looking through it and trying to see like, does this scene work? Like, I feel like we need something else. And the editor suggested to bring back that line from the first film. And they were like, that's it.
It was a pretty good call.
Such a good call. I saw that same interview and I was like, God, that was such a... They said it themselves, the Russos were like, holy shit. As soon as he said it, they were like, we got to film that right now.
I heard that they had trouble getting Downey to come back because he had basically already kind of wrapped on the film and had said his goodbyes to the character and everything, and they had to call him up and be like, "Hey, can you fly out and like film one line for like 5 minutes or whatever?"
And he's like, "Yeah, for 70 million,
$10 billion."
Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, talk to my agent about it." Yeah, no, I'm glad they did though. I mean, I thought again that exchange between those two characters, and I feel like as the conclusion, I think, to Tony's arc in this series, like that. I mean, this is the man that built weapons and didn't give a shit about anything, and then he finally found himself in jeopardy, in a cave, and he built a suit with a box of scraps, etc. And then it comes to this point, like the amount of like where that character started, where that ended, it was just like that was like Tony looking out for others and not looking out for himself. You're not the one to lay down on the wire, you're not the one to make a sacrifice play. Like that line of dialogue in Avengers, like that is like totally, maybe that was true at that point in time, but this version of Tony Stark, even with a fucking daughter, even with a wife, like he's just like, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to save the fucking universe, potentially, like, I guess not potentially. If Thanos snaps, I guess everyone's fucked. It's not just Earth, so.
Yeah, I think so.
I loved it. I thought, I mean, I didn't want Iron Man to die. I expected Cap to die, so I was, I guess, relieved on one sense and surprised in another sense, but I felt like, as I think, Jordan, you said earlier, way earlier, like you can't. This isn't comics, right? You can't expect these people to just keep coming back and back and back, and at some point you have to craft an out for them. And I thought that this was the strongest out you could have possibly thought of for Tony Stark, and it was one that somewhat caught me off guard. I thought for sure he'd be living happily ever after as like a mentor type character. Maybe we'd never see Robert Downey Jr. after this again, unless they were just like, all right, well, we'll give you $25 million if you show up for a day on set. Okay. Maybe that would happen, but I it's great. I don't know. Maybe you guys, I don't know if you guys agree or not. You guys are welcome to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful moment to end the character on. Just how brutal and how big of a sacrifice it was is built up by the movie. It's built up by like his last moments where he's just really, messed up. It's not your typical, I love you, I love everybody. It really took a toll. And it certainly is the build from that character from Iron Man 1, who I think had already reached close to those heights in Avengers 1.
That's true.
The nuke
when it goes to the portal.
He'd shown the capability for that, but yeah, you put him in a different situation where the stakes are even higher, what he can get and what he can lose. But it's interesting to me, Thanos is just trying to do everything he can to snap back and correct the flaws of his original plan. I am inevitable. I'm going to fix it so they won't even remember what they lost, so that way nobody will try to undo what I do this time. So he knows that, like, it's hard to say you got lucky to a guy that, like, lost all these important people and lost the fight and lost the war. But he knows what's on the line, and part of what's on the line is that new family that he now has. And it harkens back to I hope they remember you that Thanos has in the first movie. He's like, fuck that now, I'm going to make them forget you. But now as an audience member watching that, that's what we'll remember. We'll remember Iron Man in the cave making that first suit, the big bulky Iron Man Mark 1, and we'll remember I Am Iron Man at the end of the first movie and I Am Iron Man at the end of the 22nd movie, and it's just a nice parallel, nice symmetry, and then obviously that ties into that fade to black with the hammer. It's come full circle. It wasn't always the Infinity Saga, I guess. Maybe they've had that in mind in a while. I didn't know it was the Infinity Saga, but now the Infinity Saga's concluded, and it's tied in a nice bow. And it's I guess as far as ending in a movie, you got to do it. It's okay. As long as they keep making quality movies, I would have probably voted for the James Bond methodology of just bringing a new blood to do these characters, as long as there's stories to tell. But I'm also happy with this as a conclusion.
I do feel like you could just I guess I mean it's not the same thing, obviously, but there's no reason you can't have some sort of character picking up the torch of an Iron Man, whether it's
Rescue.
I guess Rescue, War Machine, or even bringing in like Riri Williams to be Ironheart, something like you could certainly riff on that. And I feel like, especially like in the wake of the legacy that like fucking Iron Man probably leaves behind, like you could definitely do something with that. So
I did want to jump to the actual death scene of Tony Stark real quick, because I think that it's interesting to note the way that he dies, because I just felt it was really powerful the way that he's like incoherent for all of his loved ones saying how much they love him and like not wanting him to go. Whereas in another movie you might not get that ending. I felt that it was a really strong choice to have him just be completely dazed and like on the verge of death, and still being alive enough to like have those final moments without it being like, you know, some cheesy last words or something like that. I felt like it was really, really powerful, and that hit me hard.
Yeah, I feel like they never cut the tension in this film, which I can think back to some other Marvel movies where they do that, and like everything just stayed with you. Like they, even though this movie was funny at times, there were some very serious moments, and like you could really feel the impact. And then again, just all the actors just completely bringing their A game, like in Robert Downey Jr. in that very end, like completely sold it. Just you see him. You know, like you said, like he couldn't even speak. And when Spider-Man is right there, that was killer. Oh man. And then obviously Pepper, like that was rough.
Yeah. I mean, he was just fried at that point. It was and they didn't like, they lingered on like the shot of just like fucking dead Tony Stark for like a good 3 or 4 seconds, and it was just like just soak it in, like no jokes this time, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I think I don't know if it cuts exactly to it, but we get the funeral very shortly afterward, which is a celebration in some ways, obviously of his life, but like a celebration of the universe, I think, at the same time, and the amount of like fucking cast members that they assembled for that, assuming they were in fact on set at the same time. I guess maybe it could be some digital fuckery with some of them, but I think they got most of those people on set like just for at least a day, and like that's crazy. I mean, it was basically the whole MCU characters that had not died up until that point, hanging around.
I heard Sebastian Stan give an interview, and he was saying that they were told that everybody was getting dressed up to go to a wedding.
Yeah. I heard the same thing. So I assume at some point the Russos clued them in. Was like, oh no, look sad.
Yeah.
Or just look like bittersweet, like, I wish I married that person instead, something like that,
Right.
Play
really
with your emotions a little bit.
To think of how secretive they have to be for these movies, it's just like it's
crazy,
another
right?
little wrinkle that they have to deal with.
Yeah, it was a good moment though.
Yeah, I like how the Russos themselves lifted the spoiler ban, and now like all the actors like posting all these cool behind the scenes videos and whatnot. It's just cool to see like all those actors were really in the same place at times, interacting together. That's crazy. And I feel like we've never seen that before to that level.
Yeah, it's really cool. We had some other characters that were in this movie. So, thank you. Well, I was going to say, in terms of really, I guess, the OG Avengers, and I mean, I guess to be fair, obviously things are now opened up for, your Black Panther sequels, your Doctor Strange sequels, et cetera, et cetera. Your Spider-Man sequels might be getting one of those pretty soon, maybe. But like, it's obviously a passing of the torch. I mean, we can expect those. We can expect another Captain Marvel and stuff like that. But I think in terms of the OG Avengers, it's an interesting setup because Hulk now has a baby arm, a little crippled baby arm, and so what does that mean for Hulk?
But not like the Deadpool baby.
No, not quite like that.
Limbs.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It's like it's an interesting endpoint for Banner Hulk, which I mean, I think for him it's probably more the loss of Nat that's probably affecting him more than that, I would think, than anything else. Which it's even if I didn't necessarily find that pairing that amazing to begin with, I'm glad that they didn't just totally like write that off immediately. Like as soon as Whedon was gone from making movies, like they still really let you believe that there was a genuine connection between the two, which I enjoyed. I guess we can assume it's a quiet life for Barton. I guess we'll find out in Hawkeye coming to Disney Plus in 2021, something like that. I don't know. But I think the two most interesting endpoints concern Thor and Captain America. And one feels very much like a setting up. Well, I guess they're both very much setting up the future, but I think in different ways. So with Thor, we have the Asgardians of the Galaxy. We see him hanging out on the Benatar with the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end there. We see Quill looking for Gamora. Hey, Gamora.
He's the boss.
Yeah. Of course.
We all know.
Of course.
We all know.
Of course. Of course. And I fucking love that setup. Like I mean,
so good.
you know, I'm happy James Gunn's back in the saddle for Guardians 3, and I really got to think they would not let this be the ending if they weren't going to pay that off in Guardians 3. Like if it's just a fucking team up movie with the Guardians and Thor searching for Gamora, maybe an Adam Warlock's involved. Ooh, buddy.
It's got to be, man. It's that's
like
what's on
that.
the
I
horizon.
mean, like I more often than not, I find that these movies are not written the way that I expect them to be written, and I enjoy them for that reason. But I there's a lot of potential any way you spin it, I think. So I'm really excited to see where they go with that, and that end scene was fucking hilarious.
I love what's happened.
Kills every time.
Yeah, I love what has gone on with Thor's character, and just this like rebirth that Chris Hemsworth and Thor have been able to have from Taika's Thor Ragnarok all the way following through all this stuff. It's just like taking the character in such weird, interesting places, and going into a Guardians movie, like, you know, I'm sure Taika might step in to help out. Maybe there'll be like maybe some Korg in Asgardians of the Galaxy or something like that, or I don't know. Maybe he'll stay in New Asgard with Valkyrie. But
yeah, and that's something too to talk about. Valkyrie, Queen of Asgard. She has to take care of Korg and Meek as they play Fortnite against New Master 69 and such. So maybe one of the changes she's going to make in Asgard is to get rid of Fortnite. No Wi-Fi, maybe. I don't know. She might.
That Fortnite scene was very funny, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Fortnite won't hold up that well, and maybe
it's gonna be dated in a few years. Yeah. I feel you.
Well, I mean, I think I saw an interesting theory that after the snap, they weren't really dedicating AAA resources to video games anymore. So,
which is fair.
What
was popular in 2018 stuck around for years and years. But I think it's a bit sexist. I mean, I think didn't they say that they needed a new king, or she said he needed a king, and he said they already got one. So why can't she be king, man?
She could be, yeah.
King.
Yeah.
She can be king. I don't care. It's fine.
Tessa Thompson can be whatever she wants, right?
That's true. That's true. Cap. We gotta talk about Cap. Steve Rogers. Riding off into the sunset in a way. This definitely feels like the last entry for Chris Evans. He's put the work in, so it's hard to fault him for wanting to maybe hang up the shield, but Cap finally decides to get a life, as he says, which I respect that. I respect that he's getting a life. And so I think we can say that in terms of, well, so there's been some sort of there's been some controversy on the front where the Russos have interpreted how Cap's ending works as differently than how the writers Marcus and McFeely have interpreted how the ending works. I myself I think the cleanest, most logical solution is that he went into an alternate universe, branched out, and then just reset the time GPS to just go slightly different time or slightly different place. But he lived out his life in an alternate universe, went back to the main timeline to give Sam the shield. Does that square with anyone? Like that seems like the most appropriate way to do it, right?
I kind of go back and forth.
That's what I thought.
I kind of go back and forth in thinking that maybe. So what you're saying is like he dropped everything off, and then maybe ended in the 70s and then jumped back to 1940s.
Yeah, I think that's what I would think is
right.
Well, I mean, he's definitely in the 40s at the end of the movie. There's no doubt about that. So at the very least, he he did that much. But I think that, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense, I don't think, for him to somehow still be within the main timeline and still have made the time jumps. Like they pretty clearly lay out, like, you know, if you, like, whatever you change in the past is going to change. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the future, but it's going to change that past's future. So it's just kind of like, as soon as he goes back and starts dancing with Peggy after he's presumably been buried in the ice, well, I mean, that's fucking with history a bit,
right?
I mean,
so I thought is, like, there's not, like, it's not like a situation where he goes back and he has to watch this alternate history of himself come back and fight in all these like the war, or I guess the Battle of New York and all these other things, and sit it out.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, theoretically, there's like 70 years of history where Cap should just be frozen, and like he could totally be just, you know, having a chill life with Peggy and stuff like that. I would think,
right?
You know,
so then he could just come out of the ice fresh.
I guess once Cap comes out of the ice, that time's a little screwy. He's just like, Cap, you've been alive for 70 years. No, I haven't. I've been in ice for 70 years. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's a little wonky. So that's, I guess, just problematic. But.
Because of the way it was presented in the film, where he knew when this was happening, where this was happening, and he's just sitting there waiting for them. My initial perception is basically, oh shit, like Peggy got married or whatever it said in, what was that, Civil War maybe? Like, oh shit, it was Cap the whole time. Like, it's all kind of like a closed loop. And then I read the interview with the directors that said, no, he's in an alternate timeline, he just jumped back. I think either is fine. I kind of liked the idea that, like, he always got that dance, he always got the girl, and it was all part of the timeline. It just, you know, we didn't know that until now. But the other way's, I guess, fine as well. The biggest problem with that is the idea that Cap, even if he's incognito or living a normal citizen's life, that he would let things happen. He would let the natural disasters that cost a lot of lives, that he would let the atrocities that occur in the world go by unchecked. Like, that would be that. So I just assume that, you know, alternate timeline, doing his thing, making the world a better place, while we're stuck here in the darkest timeline. So, you know, what are you going to do?
It definitely sets up the idea of this multiverse, and like going forward, we'll see how deep they actually dig into that, because it's going to get really complicated really quickly.
It can, unless they do something to just clip that. Like, I almost feel like they either have to, like, just totally lean into it, or they have to shy away from it as much as possible. You gotta go to the Harry Potter route and, like, oh yeah, we destroyed all the time turners, don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Every
like, they
Pym
got something
particle
like
in
that.
existence is gone and no more can be made.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I think that we will see some multiverse stuff going forward, and I think that capping in another, you know, another timeline or another dimension or whatever he's supposed to be in makes sense. But even if he's in this other dimension, is there still a frozen Cap? And, like, I guess that's their out.
Yeah,
if they
there would have to be.
If they ever want to bring any of these actors back, which I think that, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think that we've seen Captain America. Like, I don't think we've seen Chris Evans as Captain America and Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man on screen in the MCU for the last time. Whether that's a cameo role or not, I just think that there's a possibility that we will see them again, you know, 10 years down the line, whatever it is.
I would say if that's the case, they would cool the jets for a bit and then bring them back for, like, an Avengers, like, 6 or 7 or, like, whatever, like the Endgame 2.0 is for Phase 4, 5, 6, whatever you want to do. Like, I could see that happening as just being, like, this holy fuck kind of thing. But I don't think we'll see them in the imminent future. I don't guess.
I don't think so either. But there are those people out there that are really theorizing hard that we'll see Downey really quick, and I don't see it.
I would say, like, maybe a hologram and Far From Home would be my best guess, but I even then I doubt it. I don't think they're going to go that far with it. It would make sense if they did, though. Maybe. I don't know. It would. I mean, it would make sense, but so Cap. Anyway, timelines. Who cares? Doesn't make sense. Time travel doesn't matter. How about the decision to give the shield to Sam Wilson?
I love it. I think it's in terms of these characters, I think that was the right move. Like, I know, like, I traditionally Bucky gets it first, but Bucky's a crazed lunatic who's killed tons of people, and Sam is kind of a war hero at this point. So I like it, and I think, you know, in terms of just, like, having a more diverse cast, I think it's a sweet move, and I'm excited to see Sam Wilson. I mean, Anthony Mackie's the funniest guy ever, so I can't wait to see, like, what he brings to Captain America.
Yeah, no, I really want to see him, and I would have loved to see Bucky as the new Cap, but I think this is the right move, especially because not only like Bucky was gone for a while, like he came back in Winter Soldier and disappeared again. So I'm sure like Cap and Sam, like Sam's probably learned a lot from Cap recently, and it also just seems like Bucky closed a lot of his arc. Not necessarily that he's done, but like Sam just seems like he's starting like his new chapter now, whereas Bucky, you know, I think we talked about it before. Like Steve probably told him that he was going back because it seemed like he knew the whole time.
Yeah.
So there was a possibility, you know, that he could have gone back and wouldn't even been around to take the shield. So I think it does make a lot of sense for Sam, who's like this new generation, who can be part of these new Avengers, to be the new Captain America.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I think with the way that they've told the stories of these characters, Sam to me feels like the more obvious candidate of the two. Like, and I just have to assume that Steve and Bucky had a conversation before he went back. I mean, the way that it's written very much implies that he knows. I'd like to think that Steve at least was like, hey, you know, we can live in the 40s together. I mean, you don't have Peggy Carter waiting for you back home or anything like that. But you know, it'll be all right. You'll be all right.
So
maybe
a question in terms of like Bucky, if he was to become Captain America at some point or anything, we're just to assume that they were able to brainwash him, right? Like those words don't no longer trigger any sort of like killer instinct, right?
I mean, if we can trust Shuri and the Wakandans, yeah. I mean, like, wasn't that kind of what they were working on? Another broken white boy to fix or something like that?
Yeah, but it's like, I guess.
I'm assuming they fixed him, or I don't know, or they were just like, shit's about to pop off. Here's your arm. Here's an arm. Like, let's go to town. You know, I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. That could be part of it too. I mean, it's just like, hey, I mean, you know, Zemo's still out there, so you never know.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. I think that's about it for my thoughts of like the plot related stuff for this movie. I have some lingering questions and some thoughts that we can run through pretty quickly, but all in all, that's about it. I think we've covered our bases for sure. I wanted to shout out the credits that they did with like the fucking cool ass signatures and stuff. I thought that was totally sick. I thought that was a badass move. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that, but
that was great. Like, especially one thing that we haven't talked about that I feel like ties in here is Alan Silvestri's score. Like, he's obviously done a lot of stuff.
Crushed it. Fucking crushed it. Right. Yeah.
Captain America. And this is just awesome. Like, if you go back and listen to it, you can like visualize some of these scenes, and just like having the Avengers theme now be, you know, like 7 years old or so. It just like, it's so iconic now, whereas I think in the beginning it was this cool theme, and now you can immediately recognize it, and just changing it up for Infinity War, changing it for Endgame, and just bringing it all back here was great. The whole score was fantastic, and then just tying it up with these credits was amazing, I thought.
So this is a little slightly off topic, but have you guys seen the video, the Every Frame a Painting video about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and how like the score, like they were just talking about how the scores and a lot of the music isn't as memorable as you would like to see. Does this ring a bell for anybody?
I haven't seen it. No.
Okay, so
I haven't seen it, but I've had that thought.
Okay, so
before.
Basically the argument is made that there's not a focus on certain elements, certain filmmaking elements that in other movies like Jurassic Park or Star Wars or something like this, where you have a score that's so memorable you can hum it at any time. Everybody knows it, no matter if you're a huge fan or not. And I think that at this point, it's literally just Marvel Studios dunking on that video, because they really went out of their way in all the trailers and all the marketing materials and everything. I think most people right now, if you ask them, they can probably hum that tune. And it's funny because they poked at the Avengers theme specifically, and they were just like, it's fine. And I think they took the existing material and amped it up a little bit, and it's a super memorable score that I think will stick with people for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's iconic now. I mean, you don't make $2+ billion at the box office without people having some sort of takeaway from it. So
I don't know, man.
I think that might be one.
I don't remember the score in Avatar.
That's true. I couldn't tell you.
Touche, my friend. Touche.
I remember that Titanic song, though.
You're right about that.
Yeah. See, counterpoint. That's yeah.
Some
very
good
good.
old
Very
Celine
good.
Dion.
So no post-credit scene, no mid-credit scene, no nothing. I mean, we got a little Tony Stark hammering away at an anvil or something like that at the end, a little sound. And we get the really cool thing in the middle with the original cast. I thought was a great recognition of their contributions to this cinematic universe. But obviously a very conscious decision to make you feel like, hey, you know, like, I mean, obviously there's movies coming out after this, but like this is it for this line of story. Like, it was an interesting decision. I mean, it's the first. Actually, is that true? Does Incredible Hulk have a post-credit sequence? Someone tell me.
Yeah, because they meet up at the bar, right?
No, that's at the very end of the movie. So I'm curious if there's something after that. Anyway, it's either the first or the second one. It's the first one in a long time, if nothing else, to not have had a very deliberate post-credit sequence. But I didn't mind it. I mean, I obviously want to know what's coming next, and we have some inclination of what's coming next. We can talk about that in just a minute. But, I mean, would you guys have preferred to have seen something there, you know, like just signaling you like what's to come? Or are you guys content to just let this be what it is and, you know, fucking, you know, the next movie is going to be out in 2 months' time, so it's like, okay, well, maybe that'll give you a little bit more of a tease for what's to come.
Yeah, I think it feels like less of a conclusion if you have a teaser to what comes next. I mean, we can all go home and watch the Spider-Man trailer if we want to see what's next from Marvel. If we want to know what's next in terms of the big picture, I think we just kind of have to wait and see. But I liked it. I think it was appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's an interesting decision. You know, I wouldn't have been sad if they set up something that was equally as hype worthy as many of the things that were in the film itself.
Or Galactus.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that would have been exactly in the cards, but I assume it is in the cards at some point somewhere. So it was interesting. It's an interesting decision. I expect we'll have a post-credit sequence in Spider-Man, if nothing else, though. I feel like they'll go back to it when it comes back to setting things up now, you know, from this point on. I'm not going to ask anyone for any specific MCU rankings, but we did talk about it briefly in non-spoilers as something we might talk about. I'm just curious, I mean, do you guys think that this is like top-tier Marvel, kind of like middle of the pack? Is it Thor the Dark World tier? I mean, where does it sit for you guys? I mean, it sounds like we all liked it. So
very, very bottom.
Yeah,
the worst.
It's interesting. I mean, for me, it's a top tier experience. I don't know if I want to put it number one. I want to let it rest for a little bit.
Sure.
You know, every time I sit out to watch the whole thing, I get distracted at one point, and then I come back. I'm like, I don't want to watch that next movie. I'm going to jump into this movie instead. So I'd have to do some work really to do that. But I think it's a movie that is interesting in the sense that it is almost certainly not going to be a movie I would recommend to a newcomer because there's so much you need from context. Like you could maybe say like, okay, you can watch Infinity War and then Endgame, but you can't just watch Endgame. But you should probably watch at least Iron Man and then Captain America and then Civil War, and you got to pick out like 6 or 8 movies that you should watch, and then. But like in reality, you should just watch them all. So I think it's a movie that is better than the sum of its own parts if you look at the sum of the whole cinematic universe that they've created, but certainly worse than the sum of its parts for somebody who doesn't have that context, which, I mean, if you need an excuse to get that context to be part of the human race and see the movie that's vying for the throne, then obviously you should. But it's interesting. So for somebody like me and like us, it's top tier. I'm just not sure that it would necessarily be number 1 or number 3 or what at this point.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I know, I think Henry, Andrew, and myself did rankings at some point when we were prepping for Infinity War, and so we probably have a ranking that's on the record somewhere. I don't remember what it was. I think I had Winter Soldier at number 1. I'm not sure where this slots in. I think top tier is certainly a safe bet. I just, with its 3-hour runtime, and I feel like the way it's paced, I think is actually really well paced for a 3-hour movie. It doesn't feel like a movie with 12 endings. It doesn't feel like like with the 3-act structure I think that I see in it. I think that it's something that at least 3 times through, has held up to repeat viewings, and I feel like that's going to be true even moving forward. It's a slow-ish burn at times, and then it, fan service kind of stuff. But like, I feel like anytime you get to the third act, it's just like whatever you feel about the first 2 acts, like ridiculous, just awesome. So I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it a little bit.
I'd say top tier. It's definitely top tier. I agree with basically what both of you guys are saying. I don't think I could give it number 1. It's too fresh. And I honestly don't even know even if it wasn't fresh, if it'll be number 1. Probably not, honestly. Because as you were saying, just the ability for a movie to stand on its own is something to be said for. And I think that this one, in terms of a cinematic experience, it's going to remain unmatched for a long time. But it's definitely top tier. I would honestly probably even say, like, I'd be willing to say like top 5 as of right now, but who knows where I'll be in a year or so.
Yeah, I think initially for me, if I had to put it somewhere, I might put it in my top 3, but it's hard to detach like all the emotions that I felt in the theaters from it. So yeah, sometime down the road, I can probably gauge it a little more objectively.
Cool. All right. I have one last question for you guys. And, we've been here a while. I get it. So feel free to say as much or as little as you feel like. What does Marvel do next? I mean, we have a slate of sorts that they haven't officially announced, but we basically know what they're doing. I mean, you got your Black Widow movie. We talked about it a bit. What's it going to be? Is it a prequel? Maybe. The Eternals, getting cosmic, cool. Good stuff. Shang-Chi, Guardians Volume 3, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, maybe a Thor sequel. You got the Disney Plus shows coming along. You got the Loki show, which will almost certainly be the 2012 timeline Loki fucking around somewhere. WandaVision, horrible name, but interesting premise with half of its characters not alive as of this movie. So what's that about? Hawkeye show. There's another one. Oh, fucking Winter Soldier and Falcon. So what's that? Is that a Captain America show? Like, there's a lot that we know that's on the table. And those are all interesting. I think the Eternals and Shang-Chi are the most interesting in terms of like, oh, that's a new thing that they're doing. Whereas the others are just like, yeah, I mean, of course I'm making a fucking Black Panther sequel and stuff like that. But what are you guys looking forward to the most of any of those that are announced? If you had like a dream project, what would you pick? Like if you're like just one, just you had to pick one and just like, I want to see this character brought to the big screen and given the Marvel Cinematic Universe treatment and presumably justice, with Kevin Feige and company involved. It's probably not. It's probably a safe bet. So, what do you guys think?
I mean, just off the bat, I am super, super excited for how interesting an Eternals movie can be. I think that's going to be a really cool direction for them to take. And with the cast that's being loaded into that, Kumail Nanjiani, I think, is on for sure. Angelina Jolie, and then as of like today,
Richard
Madden, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm happy with that cast. That's cool.
The King in the North.
So I'm ready to see that movie. I also, just in terms of like, I've been watching a ton of videos, going and reading a bunch of stuff. People are really, really quick to say that they think Kang is going to be this next massive arc here. And with the introduction of time travel, I think that's definitely a reasonable way to go. But Marvel they're not always going the obvious route. So I don't know if I could say like where they're going in terms of like a large villain, but Kang, I fucking like Kang a lot. If they can give him the kind of character motivation they gave Thanos, I'm on board.
The 2 comic storylines that I would like to see adapted at some point, doesn't have to be now, but I think now actually could be a good time to bring them on, would be for a Black Panther sequel to adapt the Ta-Nehisi Coates initial run of Nation Under Our Feet, just because this was Wakanda was invaded, so this makes them vulnerable. They're open to the world, and that'd be an interesting take to look at it. And I know a lot of us are big fans of the Annihilation storyline, and I feel like with Xandar being destroyed by Thanos, this could also, kickstart that storyline with Nova. So
I need Nova.
I don't think that's where they're going, but if I could pick one thing that I would pitch to Kevin Feige, it would be that.
Yeah, dude, a full fucking Annihilation adaptation would be incredible. Incredible. What do you think, Jordan?
I think that they're going to make billions of dollars. They're going to sell at least.
We got a lot of hot takes coming in, but
at least 2 tickets per movie and a subscription to me personally. I was going to mention Annihilation and Nova because I'm still salty that James Gunn hates my boy Dick Ryder. He's not getting his due, but I'm down for anything. I mean, I think, you take these characters that I've always known growing up because, Spider-Man was the main thing, but like Iron Man, I owned Captain America comics growing up, but weren't these massive, successful A-listers. They were maybe B-listers or even C-listers in some cases, and now like that we're moving into these new characters. What can they do with these other characters? I'm just excited to see what comes, and I'm open, and I hope they give me something that I like. But like I said, they'll sell at least 2 tickets per, even if I don't.
So the other thing is, like, we talked about it a little bit, but the A-Force could be something interesting going on there. Like, even if it's not like a full A-Force like we just saw, but like a couple of them, like, like just take like 3 or 4 of those characters and throw them together. I'd love to see a movie like that. And then I guess the other thing that's kind of being set up a little bit is some sort of like young Avengers, because we've got a lot of the younger children of Avengers who, Morgan in this movie, and also
she'll be the leader. Right now. No, it'll take place 2023. She'll be the leader.
She'll be the leader. Yeah, right now.
She had the rescue helmet on, so she's got it. She knows. Something like something to give me lunch, or you're going to be disintegrated. Something like that.
I think that if we do
give me a cheeseburger.
Yeah, I think that if we do see a young Avengers, it's way down the line, way down the line.
I could. Yeah, a few years. Give it a few years for sure. Of what I'm looking forward to most, I'm kind of I think the Eternals and Shang-Chi are just kind of the most exciting because I just don't know what to expect with like Marvel doing like the Eternals is definitely like a totally out there, would not expect them to make that movie kind of thing. So I'm really curious to see what they do with that. And it's almost certainly a 2020 movie, so it's coming up soon. In terms of what I want to see, and I don't expect to see this for a good few years, because they legally probably weren't allowed to develop anything with this until very recently. But I got to see the first family come back home. I got to see Fantastic Four. And I got to see Doctor Doom.
Oh my God! If it's Doctor Doom, if Doctor Doom's our next villain, fuck Kang. I want Doom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think they should go quite balls to the wall, Galactus, Silver Surfer type stuff just yet. Mm-hmm. But I think that Doctor Doom is a must. Like he could easily be a Loki of Avengers 5, I guess, if they wanted to do that. Like he can be a Fantastic Four villain. He can be, he could be in anything. You throw him in anything. Like he could be just a through line villain throughout everything. You just got to do him right, though. You know what I mean? Like, and that's easier said than done, apparently. So,
I know it's super fan casting, but like the Emily Blunt, John Krasinski for like I need it.
So
man.
down.
How can they not?
Great.
That'd be great.
Everybody needs to just get on board with that, and then just like sail the ship. Give them $70 million. I don't care. Let's go.
I love it. Yeah, I'm all down for it. That sounds great to me. I got to see them done right. X-Men. I'm excited to see the X-Men get integrated at some point. Deadpool would be interesting to see how he plays with the MCU at large. The X-Men has at least had good movies alongside also shitty movies, but I like Fantastic Four has been done dirty from even the Roger Corman days. And that might actually be the best of any of the Fantastic Four movies, which I think says quite a bit in and of itself. But I gotta believe Marvel's gonna treat them right. They know. So, So
Chris Evans for the Human Torch.
That would be good casting.
Right back in.
That's it. I think that's Avengers Endgame and beyond. I guess a little bit as well. I'm not going to ask too much of you guys from this point on. We've already lost one Avenger along the road to here. Not the first time that it's happened, for the record. I don't really have much to shout out. I finished my exams. Jordan's going to fly out to Philadelphia very soon, and that'll be fun. We'll be doing some sightseeing and such, so I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, I have not been doing a whole lot other than being lazy / actually trying to clean up a little bit. But if you guys want to talk about anything you've been watching, shout out anything you're up to lately, now's a good time. Feel free to do so.
A few quick shout outs. So I watched the Netflix movie, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, based on the book that I read earlier by our own Bear Mordo.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm finally on the Barry season 2, which is great.
Oh, you're on the new season now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a few episodes in. I'm not caught up, but started it. And I don't know if you guys started watching the What We Do in the Shadows TV show.
Oh,
on
no.
FX.
No, I haven't. No.
That's great. It's very similar to the movie, and obviously Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi have played somewhat of a role in it, but it's a really cool dynamics. There's some similarities between the characters too, but 4 episodes in, and it's interesting enough that I would really want to continue seeing this, and I find it very funny. The humor is pretty spot on, in my opinion. And I feel like we don't shout out comic books too often in the podcast. I've been very behind on mostly everything, but I did pick up the Captain America first trade by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and that deals a lot with the aftermaths of the Captain America as the Hydra agent, which I didn't read that Secret Empire run, so I had to kind of look up some things about it. But it's interesting. I'm still working my way through it, but you can tell the writing style is Coates through and through. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew? What have you been up to?
We know what he's been up to. He's been catching up on his slumber.
Well, okay. Yeah, if you say so. What about you guys? James, Jordan, anything? Either of you? Don't all speak at once?
I've just, sorry, we both waited and both started at the same time. I've just been getting disappointed by Game of Thrones recently. It's really the only thing I've been doing outside of work.
Yeah.
So yeah. But looking forward to an upcoming trip I have to Philadelphia. Should be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I'd like to think so.
Gosh, Game of Thrones. Oh boy, you gonna do another episode right now?
Oh boy, yeah.
I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt for its final 2 episodes, but
yeah, me too. But oh boy. So basically, I've just been for my podcast covering Two Towers. We just watched the film. The episode will be out very soon. Very interesting because along with Game of Thrones, the Battle for Winterfell and the Battle of Helm's Deep were kind of back to back for us. So we make some comparisons to that. We read the book and then see the movie, and that's kind of how we do our coverages. We did 3 episodes on the book, 1 episode on the movie, and the podcast is called Ink to Film. And check it out. My co-host is a writer. His name is Luke, and I'm a filmmaker, James. So other than that, I've been playing Sekiro still. It's beating the shit out of me, but I'm chipping away at it. And I've also been watching Barry. That show's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so much.
Are you on in the new season yet too?
Yeah,
or are you?
Yeah. The new season, they're just like and that next step up, they're killing it. I'm
really?
super proud of where that show.
I'm only through season 1. I haven't watched any of the new season yet, so that's gonna have to be my Game of Thrones palate cleanser, apparently.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that and Veep, man, I love Veep, and this is
I haven't watched any Veep. I've heard it's great, but yeah.
So that's kind of my Game of Thrones. That's my Sundays. I just watch all those.
Yeah, good deal. Inktofilm.com. Check them out. Good stuff. Highly recommended. That's it. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. If you want to support us on Patreon, and I feel it's so bad. It's like we haven't finished our Game of Thrones rewatch, and so it's just kind of just like I'm still trying to slug my way through 6 and 7, and we're going to record on it, and it's just like I've lost the will to continue in a way. I feel bad saying that, but it's kind of true. But we are going to we're committed. We're committed to the cause. We're going to finish our Game of Thrones rewatch. So the The way to experience that with us is to support us on Patreon. We are available on Patreon. Easiest way to get there, I guess I should say, is through our website, watchreviewrepeat.com. Click the premium tab in the top left, and then click the Become a Patron button. $2 a month gets you access to all bonus episodes, which includes those Game of Thrones episodes, as well as early access to all of our regular episodes. Case in point, you could have listened to our non-spoiler coverage a whole week ago. Actually, probably 2 weeks ago by the time this actually goes out. I don't know. Timelines. Avengers. You know what I mean? If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please send those our way. Our Gmail account is watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at WRRPod. On Facebook, just like us at Watch Review Repeat. Intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. We're going to be doing Detective Pikachu for our next episode, and I think there's a pretty steady stream of releases coming out after that. I think John Wick's pretty closely after that. Godzilla's at the end of the month sometime. So there's good stuff on the horizon, and I think that now that I'm done with a full year of law school, I should hopefully have a little bit more time to keeping this going at a regular basis. So I would like to say thank you very much to Henry for joining us once again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'd like to say thank you very much to Jordan for joining us, and a prestigious honor on a Marvel film episode. So I hope it was not lost on you. It wasn't lost on me, I guess.
It's greatly appreciated.
And thank you to James for joining us as well. We'll see you all at some point. I think it's fair to say that should you choose to, you're welcome to come back on the show. It's a great honor to have all three of you here alongside Andrew. It's too easy. It's too easy. We're professionals here, obviously. So that's it. We will catch you on our next episode. Everyone have a wonderful week. Laters on the Menge.
Take care now. Bye then. We're both jumping in there. Nice.
I appreciate it.